Hello and welcome to TCG Buzz. I am two lanes and I've killed Jacob. He's dead and I've replaced him with my own man, Grie the breaker of games, the critiquer of rulebooks, the admin of HTCG, the homemade trading card game server. Hello. And we have Rydon too. He's still
Yeah,
he
I'm
decided
still here.
he
I've
decided to
not
keep him
been
around.
killed and reskinned with Grie 2 yet. Looking forward to it. It's also
We're
great to
making
have Grie
plans.
here. Grie is super cool. I have a lot of respect for his opinions and his thoughts. And we've chatted on Pred or Prey, which is a fantastic game that they made, and you should go play it.
But that's not what we're talking about today.
Mm-mm.
Today we're going to be talking about trends in TCGs. So that I thought that'd be an interesting topic of mechanics that we've seen pop up more recently over the past 5 or so years, ever since the old MetaZoo era.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I've noticed as a game developer, game consultant, viewer, owner of a toy store, where it's like you see all these different mechanics continuing to rear their heads, and sometimes it's inspiration off of other games that came slightly before, and sometimes it's a bunch of people seeing an issue or a problem or a complaint with mechanics that were from the previous generation, and at the same time having the same idea on how to solve it.
Yeah, so the first one we're going to lead with is probably the most common one. Is I'm just going to start with any card as resource. The fact that you can use any card or sometimes almost any card as a resource for your game. I think Duel Masters was one of the first games to do this, but there might have been more games before that. But these days you can take your pick. Altered has any card as resource. Rest in peace. Star Wars Unlimited has any card as resource. Shardbug has almost any card as resource. Lorcana, which I don't have a prop for, there he's got it. Gree's got it. That's any card as resource. World of Tanks, which you probably don't even know is a TCG now. They just released their second set. This game is any card as resource. Then we Cookie Run, that's any card as resource. Alpha Clash, that's any card as resource. Echoes of Astra is any card as resource. It's everywhere. You can't avoid it.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason why it's so hard to avoid this one is because it's just such an objectively good system. I mean, if you grew up on Duel Masters, you saw firsthand how good it felt. And most of the game designers in the industry these days making these new games are people that did grow up on Duel Masters.
Yeah, I do think a lot of like developer perspective is where the any card as resource comes in, because there's always the thing of like, oh, I got land screwed or I got land flooded. Like the locking of the resource behind being able to play the game feels bad. And so growing up, that's like a core memory of like, I remember I played Magic when I was a kid and I couldn't play the game because I had too many mountains in my green deck. And so now that kind of reflects with as the easiest thing to remove. I think the most common thing and easiest thing for people to remove are the resource cards because they're dumb and stupid. And I'd rather just use every card I can and play as quickly as possible with all of my cards.
Yeah. One interesting example of the any card as resource that I want to bring up is, well, two interesting examples. The first interesting example is Buddy Fight. It's still an any card as resource system, and to an extent, same as Weiss Schwarz, but instead of them tapping like lands to produce resource, they have a stockpile system that you then pay out. But it's still at the core, any card as resource.
Shadow Era did the same thing, right?
Shadow Era? I think so, yeah.
Because it was like a Warcraft spoof, and I think it was similar-ish to Warcraft, where you wouldn't like use them to tap, but you put them in a pile, and then you just increment a die. I think Vanquisher did the same thing, and there's one other one.
Yeah.
But it's like turning it truly into a resource and not a thing you'd actually interact with.
I think it's mostly people that want to keep like the magic, incremental resource going up thing, but then they also don't want land screw. So yeah, that's basically what Speed said. Is it's the easiest way to keep that same style of play, but be able to use any cards as lands. But then, like you said with Buddy Fight, there are some cards that you can get any card as resource and get a slightly different system, like Buddy Fight or Flesh and Blood, because you pay with any card as a resource in Flesh and Blood. But it's not a creature battler the same way.
Yeah, there's been a couple mutations on the any card as resource because there's a couple too where it itself doesn't change. Besides, like Lorcana, you can only do cards that let you. Same thing with shard bugs and a couple other systems. But nowadays, people are finding that any carded resource is good over normal resource. But you start running down on cards really fast because you're usually playing 2 to 3 cards per turn, one from your hand in order to get the resource, and then playing the extra stuff. So now a lot of games nowadays are moving to drawing more cards in addition to any card as resource, because that way you're seeing more cards, you're ramping, but you're not going down and stuff to be able to play.
Yeah, Cookie Run draws you 2 cards a turn.
Yep.
Star Wars Unlimited draws you 2 cards a turn. I think even
Altered
Altered
does
draw
it.
you
Yep.
2 cards a turn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing with these two that's weird to me is like your starting hand in these games is like 3 and 4 cards.
Yeah, and it's another pivot because you're not just starting with 3 or 4. You're getting like 7, and then you're converting some of those into starting resources. So they're moving even beyond that of you're going to get extra resources to play with and extra resources per turn to play with.
It's almost like their built-in mulligan that you don't need a mulligan if you turn half your cards into resources anyway.
I mean, Buddy Fight did that, and then the upcoming Dragon Shogun's really wacky with it, where your starting hand is 10 cards, but then you take 5 of them to put into like a shield zone, and then most of your cards, when you play them as resource, say enter draw a card on top of that. So it's really like wants to get you through your deck. And I think that I mean, it's just an evolution of what Mark Rosewater said. People want to play with their cards. They want to see their cards. And I mean, that's the direction we're going. And I don't think it's a bad direction at all. I think it's fun.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a proponent playing cards in card games. I like card games where you get to play a lot of cards. If you got a 60 card deck and you've seen 15 of them in the game ends, like what are you doing here? What are we doing?
Yeah.
I do think it is a overall net positive, but there is something to say about the highs and lows that a resource system allows you that a card doesn't give you, which is what some games play around with, having the ability to be able to use them, like with Lorcana or Shard Bugs. There is that emotional tie of like, oh, I got the resource I needed, or oh, I didn't. Like those highs and lows do get smoothed out in a way, and sometimes could make for less overall interesting experiences because you're losing that kind of like ooh over and over turn by turn, and it's just okay, what can I do to the board? I don't have to think about anything else. And so I'm more of a proponent of, I don't think resource systems are bad. I don't even think lands are that bad, but
What everything else, it's one piece of the puzzle. You got to make
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
the whole puzzle is
Mhm.
the resource system is just the thing that lets the rest of the game happen.
Yeah. Well, one interesting any card as resource system is actually from Trails TCG. And I think this kind of has that fun, explosive ooh, while still smoothing out the mana screw problem, is because all of your resource cards, when you place them face down as a resource, unlike most games, they aren't just dead and only producing resource and only being lands. They're actually trap cards as well, Yu-Gi-Oh! Style trap cards that you can flip up and slam on your opponent at any time, which still has that explosive, like, oh, whoa, mama, I'm Johnny Bravo moment. You know what I mean? Like, and I thought that was a really good take on it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because usually the downside to any card is like a choice paralysis on like what do I resource? Like, oh dang it, I shouldn't have resourced this
Yeah.
thing 2 turns ago because now I really need that and I don't have it.
Especially with games that have you starting like with Altered and Star Wars, we have so many things to start with. Then you pre-resource cards and then you do your draw too. So like that's a pretty big front load of, okay, looking at my 7, I got to know which 3 I like the least right now, but maybe the ones that I couldn't, like duplicates are easy, but this one and then this one, I'm not sure about this card and this card.
Yeah.
I think Shard Bugs does do a fairly good job of like getting rid of that because you can once a turn you can play something out of your resources. So you're just like, whatever, biggest guy goes in resource. I don't really have to think about it because if I really need him later, I'll just play him from resources anyway.
Yeah, that's a super cool mechanic, and I was really glad to see like that come back from Zenonzard, because that was Zenonzard's like whole core gimmick, and I thought, and I loved Zenonzard, and I was just like, oh, this sucks, because it was a digital card game when it ended service, and I was hoping somebody would bring it back, and so like that's something that I'd love to see more, like the Zenonzard, the Shard Bugs, the Trail system of your boys can pop out of your mana when you need them again. I think that's fun.
Yeah. Speaking of, the next one is just another take on resource systems. If we're not doing any card as resources, we're putting them in a separate deck, baby. We're putting them in a Bleach, Force of Will, second pile. We got stuff like Riftbound. We got Rush of Ichor. We got Hololive. we got Gundam, we got One Piece, we got Neuroscape. A lot of games doing this these days. A lot of these are also just making them just like a generic resource, except
What
for
the
Riftbound
Altered
and I think
Saga
Hololive.
or Argent Saga was generic.
Yeah.
Hololive is energies. Well,
As one of the developers of Argent Saga, it was sometimes they're
yeah.
generic, and then
Uh,
sometimes you had really bullshit broken ones, and man, Argent Saga was a trip. But you brought up the Score Entertainment Bleach. Man, that game was amazing.
I was trying to come up with the nichest, like oldest resource deck game I could think of, and that's
Hmm.
it. Unless some '90s game I'm not aware of had a resource deck, but as
there's
far as I
always going to be
know,
some 90s
There's
game that
some
does it.
there's some 90s game,
Always.
but Bleach I think was actually the first one to popularize this, and then the one that really really popularized it is Force of Will. Obviously, like, yeah, Force of Will, great game. What I really like is you can see this evolve over time. Like you were talking about, now it's usually like a generic resource, whereas previously it used to be colored like Force of Will and Bleach. And the new evolution is, hey, it's really sucks when you have leftover mana that you can't do anything or play cards with. That feels bad. What if we give players a way to always have an interesting option for their mana? That was the evolution One Piece did with the Dawn cards, and I thought it was so freaking smart, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen more games start to do that, like Fire Force does it, but instead of power, it's how much damage you do. Dope. It's just fun.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that one sounded pretty cool.
Yeah,
It's
Riftbound
almost
does it
like
where. Go ahead.
Exodus kind of did that.
Yeah.
That your damage was equal to how many resource cards were on a guy. What a
Yep.
weird game. If you want a crazy game, look up Exodus.
Riftbound does it where they don't necessarily do anything on their own, but they made it a lot more important to recycle the cards. In recycling, in this case, is you take your resource, put it on the bottom of your deck. And so you're churning through your cards pretty quickly. So they aren't necessarily giving you extra resources, but you're going through them fast because you're getting 2 per turn. A lot of costs require you to put them back on bottom. So you're pretty regularly cycling through that deck. And they made it so where the color is a little less important, but how many you have is more important turn over turn.
It's kind of funny these things that they were giving out at Gen Con last year or year before were just like kind of like put together decks because this like Red Bloom Predator ended up being like an $80 card or something.
Yeah.
Do they even still play it in set 2? No.
You can probably see it every now and again, but yeah, it's not set 2 is doing some interesting stuff with color pie theory.
That's good.
Where
That's
they
good.
take the
Well,
pie
not in a
and
good
make it
way.
all
Not in a
purple.
yeah, where they're
Oh,
making
not
it
in a
where
good
there's
way.
yeah, it's instead of it being split, it's one color's cannibalizing the rest of the pie. Yeah.
See, when you said interesting, I assumed you meant
Yeah.
like
It's the politically correct interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
Riftbound
genuinely
really wants, like,
interesting.
remember when they first revealed this game, the frames were basically just one piece. They're like, "Dang, we really like Bandai. Let's also make purple the best color in this game, just like it's been in Digimon and
Set 1 wasn't too
maybe One
bad.
Piece."
Set 2, they went, let's give them counter spells, let's give them removal, let's give them reanimation, let's give them bounce spells, let's give them ramp, let's give them, where's the kitchen sink? Let's throw that in there.
Another cool thing about the resource deck, as opposed to any card is resource. You can bling. You can bling the resource cards. That's like the coolest part of having resource cards. I think Rush of Icor is pretty cool. They just have like random arts as like full art or foil, and that can be your resource card. So this game does have some cool art. So you can find your favorite card and try to get 10 of it to be your resources.
Force Will leaned really heavily into it towards the like middle era of it, where they started putting character artworks on the stones, and they started making really fancy textured foily stones and full art stones, and they really let you flex with how you could display it. Ripbound's doing something similar. They're giving fancy stones, promotional stones. But something I like that Force Will did, I haven't seen other games yet, is a lot of the times with these extra resource decks, you get them every turn. Every turn you get 1 or 2 of the resources. You don't have to worry about it. You have a constant churn of it. But Force Will, it's a decision. You have to choose to get that resource by tapping your J ruler or ruler. So like, I really liked that push and pull. Like, do I need to ramp this turn? Do I need to do something with my ruler this turn? It gave you an extra layer of decision making that wasn't just, okay, I have my 2. What do I do every turn?
You and I are best friends now because that was my favorite part of Force of Will when I first started playing it as a kid, because I saw that they separated the
Mm-hmm.
lands into a different deck, and I'm like, oh well, this has potential to suck now because now there's no like
Mm-hmm.
cost to
Yep.
playing a resource. And then I was like, actually, you have to tap your ruler to get it,
Mm-hmm.
which prevents it from attacking or using its abilities. Blew my freaking mind.
Yeah,
I
because
was
then
like,
when it
oh, that's
flips, it's
so
now
sick.
like if you tap it because you need the resource, it's now danger. It's in danger, so it can be hit and killed. And so there was a really interesting first couple of turns. Obviously, you just do it right. But
Yeah.
as the game started getting to that mid game, like okay, shoot, do I need my ruler? Do my ruler affect? It gave a lot of really cool options. Where a lot of games I think lose that of just you have your consistency, you have your pieces. They also gave you extra. You could have like your basic stones that everyone could have, and you had special ones that could tap for duels, or special ones that had effects. So you had this like build min max of like, okay, well, I need this effect, but I need these colors and I need this thing. And it wasn't just as straight as 6 and 6, or let's go 7 and 5 of these colors, or 5 and 5. You had to think about how often do I need to see these colors? What effects do I want? You get a lot of decision making when you don't just have it a generic thing that I think a lot of newer games are moving away from because it's easier and faster. And I think there's another reason too. But um, there's a lot you can do with an extra resource deck that's similar to resources without being as mindless as flipping every card over.
Completely agree. And to give mention of two games that do wacky things with the resource deck, and they do kind of the same thing, is Alestrals and Runes of Ede. They also have it as your life points too. So now your cost for paying those resource cards, for bringing those resource cards out of your deck, is I'm also taking damage. I think Runes of Ede does it a little bit better because in Alestrals, like sometimes like you just permanently lose them. They're attached to like energy, and that can hurt. In Runes of Ede, they come out and they're like lands and magic, so like they stick around. And in Runes of Ede, some of them have shield breaks as well. So, like, I think Runes of Ede does that a little bit better, but like those, that's another thing that's interesting for people to think about when you're doing a separate resource deck. You can also make it your Duel Masters shields. You can make it your Yu-Gi-Oh life points. There's lots and lots of cool things that you can do with it. That I think you're right, Gray. That I think a lot of people just are like, "I'll just put the lands in a separate deck and do nothing else. That's fine. Just
It's just
Hearthstone time."
Hearthstone, but with cards and
Mm-hmm.
not 2 dice, because that's clunky.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or I mean, if we want to talk super clunk, the physical Shadowverse version when I first saw how to play, and it's like, so on your playmat, you'll notice there's two sliders, and I'm like, I don't want, no,
Uh,
I'm
Nostalgics
out,
did the
dog.
exact same system. You had 2 tracks, you had your min, your maximum, and your for turn amount. You'd have to spend and move each one. I'm good.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I think
I was
the
out.
the resource deck of like, whatever, Gundam is just generic, but it gets the job
Mm-hmm.
done, I guess.
Well,
I
Yeah,
I
it's generic, but they give you token resources you can add onto it, which I think is an interesting little pivot.
EX resources, the one-time uses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
so there's a lot of good stuff out there.
I
Man,
thought
card games
about
are fun. Did you guys know that? Fucking whoa.
I hate card games.
fun. I
I
just buy
can't,
the boxes and put them on the wall.
I can't believe I'm the card games fun guy out of the three of us.
No,
That
I'm just
feels
kidding.
wrong, dude.
I actually
Oh,
debated putting Alestrals on like my box of proppy things, and I was just like, is that like, I guess it is. Like, yeah, I guess it is a resource deck. Yeah,
it is.
yeah,
I mean, if you want to really abstract, Battle Spirits, Saga Spirits is a way to be a
Battlefield Saga.
resource life type of deck deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I mean, if you want to count your stack of rhinestones that children
Mm-hmm.
swallow and choke to
Well,
death
they
on,
make card versions that you get in packs.
yeah, they do
then
make card
why?
versions.
I hate that so much. I hate that so much. Pick a lane.
No,
Ah!
because you can do whatever you want. You can make them Pokemon energy if you want. But earlier we brought up Force of Will, and that leads me to the next trend. That's leader cards. We get leader cards in a lot of games, but there's Altered popping up for the second time in a row. Here's Alpha Clash, they got leader cards. There's Star Wars Unlimited, they got leader cards. There's Shardbugs, they got leader cards. Here's Warlord Saga of the Storm, which is a game from 2000 that has like 3 things on this list. That's crazy. Oh, NFL 5? Does
Do you want
that have
10 leader cards? This game gives you 10 leader cards.
10 leader cards?
Yeah. One
I
for
don't know if
off,
that's
5?
5 for
happening.
offense, 5 for defense.
Ugh.
Is that leader cards at that point?
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
have them out. You do your stuff with them.
Transformers,
Got
Yep.
ripped
right?
out. No.
Yeah. If
No,
you
that's
think,
like making a team that starts on the board. I
how
don't
is
know.
that
I
not
guess we could get
okay?
into it.
Okay. If
Leader is one
NFL
card.
5 gets
If
to
the
be leader
whole
card.
Okay,
card
you know, if
scheme-
it's one card, FF5 doesn't count, but I had to sneak that in there.
Yeah, one card. We're talking one leader. If
Okay,
we're starting
all
with
right.
a whole bunch of stuff on the board.
Okay.
Said right after I said Warlord, where you start with a bunch of stuff on the board, but only one
Wait
of
a
them is-
minute.
Wait,
only
hold
one
on,
of them
hold
is
on.
Warlord.
Hold on. This has gone off the rails.
Oh, yeah,
Cancel the
Oshi
episode.
Push. I haven't got to put that one. You know, I got my $3 starter deck from a secret sale on Miniature Market because they've decided that they're dumping this game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hololive
Something happened with them.
Also
They
has leader
decided-
cards. Did you mention Star Wars Unlimited? Yeah. But does that
Yeah.
one count? Because you have two cards. You have your leader
It doesn't
and your
count.
base.
It doesn't count.
So-
We've
No, it
established the
counts.
rules.
It counts.
Does
There's
it?
only one guy. One's a leader.
There's guys at the base.
Okay. Well,
Okay, so it's not perfect, but
buddy fight.
What-
Buddy fight, you start with a
Euroscape?
flag, which works like your leader. I mean, that's the same kind of concept.
does it really do anything?
Yeah, there's special ones that do shit. Yeah.
You got to be playing like super duper world or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
or
mean-
in my like spiritual successor to it, I just made them all do cool shit because that's fun. So
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think Hololive had this too.
yeah,
As a leader card.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hololive has a
Hololive
leader
has a
card.
leader
They're
card.
called Oshis, I think.
Rush of Icor has a leader card too.
Yep.
It's everywhere.
At
People
this
like
point,
to
I
have
think
their
it's-
avatar.
at this point, I think it's easier to list the games that came out in the last 5 years that don't have leader cards.
Mhm.
That's how prevalent this trend is. And I can understand why, because it's fun to have a card that represents you. It's fun to have a card that is going to be a guaranteed part of your strategy. It's fun to have a card that is always going to make you feel powerful when playing the game, no matter how bad your starting hand is. With that being said, I think it's my second least favorite of the new trends because it feels so played out at this point. And I think it's to an extent kind of boring. And I'm going to say it poorly implemented in most of these games. We talked about how good of a job Force of Will did on its implementation because it made the leader card interesting in 3 different ways. You've got a card that has some base ability that you can use to tap and do an ability. You can also tap it to make mana, and you can also tap it to attack. That's a cool card. One Piece is boring because all it does is slow the game down and be an extra body on your board. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Ball Supers is the same way. I mean, realistically, right? This all comes from Commander. This is all Magic EDH kind of spawned this. Again, there's probably some 90s card game that does that. But realistically, I think a lot of people are going, oh, people like to connect with a thing in play that they can project as themselves. And this is the easiest way to do it.
It also like usually helps on deck building too, because your
Mhm.
leader's like, I get.
If you only
power.
have vowels and nouns in your card names and then you run all burn spells, then I'm really good.
Yeah, which
And you're
is
like,
also
wow, I know how to build that deck now.
yeah,
Mhm.
and that's also something they pulled from Commander because of the whole color identity
Mhm.
thing of your commander. Like,
Which is
like,
another
it's all
point
just
for
a-
Force of Will because
Yeah.
they didn't color lock you. You
I
picked your leader
know!
and you could do whatever you want with what you picked.
Bro, this is just now a Force of Will appreciation stream.
Listen,
Secretly, we've been bought off. By
I'm
Fab.
Moa's strongest Glazer, all right?
Let's go, let's go. Dap me up.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of them do color lock you to 1 or 2 colors in the leader games. I think actually bringing back Oshi Push, I think they kind of did something interesting, where cards have like a color and then like a type, and then you pick a leader and you can pick the color or the type. So you can, if you have like the Poggers type, that's a real thing in this game. If you have Poggers type, you can play any color Poggers in your deck.
Listen, I know I'm the VTuber TCG guy, but all these VTuber TCGs are so fucking cringe, dude. Every single one.
Dude,
Holy
this
shit.
one is like the one that makes the most sense, though. This is
That's the one that's
agree.
the most like V2B.
Yeah,
whereas
it's
everything
the
else is like,
VTubing one.
I don't know. I've gone on rants about this before, but to side tangent, I don't know why Oshi Push is the only one that got the fucking memo that this was about live streaming and not punching each other in the face. How did we do this?
Wait.
Even Hololive, that's like halfway there, still at the end of the day is like, and then you make your pop stars beat the shit out of each other.
I think they like.
And then you Pokemon.
They try to cover it up by like calling it something else vaguely, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's still
They did
Pokemon
the
attacks.
common term
Yeah.
replacements.
God, it's fucking infuriating. But I
the
don't wanna
best
talk
leader
about-
game.
I don't want to talk about it right now.
The best leader game, Netrunner.
Yeah.
Best leader game. That was a 90s game. Had leaders.
Oh, that's true.
And
Yeah.
then still is the best game ever made.
Did they still have the leader cards in the original version?
I actually don't know, but I'm going to say they did to sound right.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they did. There was a couple of other cards they didn't have.
I think in the original TCG, they did have leaders, but nobody cares because the living card game is objectively superior in every conceivable way.
They really
so
just
who
improved
gives
it.
a fuck?
Mhm.
But yeah, no, dude, Grie is right. Everything he said is correct. Everything he
That
says
game
is
has
correct.
leaders too.
Yeah. Sorcery has leaders?
Sorcery.
Oh,
has-
the
yeah.
avatar. Yeah.
That's like the whole thing is you have your
Yeah.
avatar that walks around putting
Yeah.
lands
The
on
avatar
the
like
ground.
builds the lands that you then summon the dudes
lands
out
into
of.
the void. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not magic.
So I just
Then you
have
can
this
walk on 'em.
image of like me being a cool hand-painted wizard walking around, just farting, and like dirt comes out of my butthole, and just bloop, it's land now.
Mountain.
It's sorcery.
Earth.
Card games are fucking fun, dude.
All right. I don't know if I have a good way to segue from farting land to the next one.
We'll workshop it.
Yeah, we unless you fart some land and then you pass it to me and I fart some land and then it's back to you again, because our next trending mechanic is back and forth actions where you do one thing, then your opponent does one thing, and it goes back and forth like that. For that, we have Star Wars Unlimited, pretty big game that does that. Altered is popping up again. There it is. There it goes. I think there's too many games below me. I think Oshi pushes back and forth actions. This is like an easy way to get instant speed type interactions without having to deal with a stack or chain or any of those type of words, queues, ladders, whatever the games call those.
Yeah. I think that this is an interesting trend to see, and I get why we're seeing it more. I think one of the games that really popularized this is actually Legends of Runeterra, which was a digital card game, and it handled it really well.
And Marvel Snap.
Marvel Snap does it. Like, it's very popular
Snap's
in
a
the
little
digital.
different.
Snap is,
Snap
it's
is a little different?
Because it's an asynchronous. You can do like 5 things in one turn.
Oh, okay.
Your opponent does, and it's hidden. Yeah.
Ignore me. I didn't.
Well,
Done.
I mean, Marvel Snap's kind of like a
Marvel Snap.
deviation on it, which I have a couple games on here that are like not, 1-to-1. I take an action, you take an action, I take an action, you take an action, like Star Wars is. But I have like the same concept. And in the digital space, I think that this concept works really, really well, because there's nothing more annoying when I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Digitally and the same pop-up comes up. Do you want to
Response? Response? Do you have a response?
Yeah.
Response? Do you have a response?
You just played a card. Would you like to activate your own torrential?
You have
TCG?
5 things you can activate here. Do you want to activate any of them? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you have 5 more things you can activate here. Do you want to activate them?
A card
No?
has
Okay.
left the field. Would you like to activate this card that
Your
doesn't
opponent
have to
set a
in any way
card.
now?
Would you like to activate a card?
It's right, exactly. There's nothing more annoying than that. So, I think that it's a good trend, definitely in digital. In physical, I like it sometimes. I think it works sometimes, but I don't think it's the end all be all.
Shoot, I didn't put. I don't have a MetaZoo 2 prop. MetaZoo 2 has
Meta 2.
leader cards, resource deck, and alternating actions.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's another good thing, I think, for digital too, because to me, the most boring part about playing digital games is waiting 10 years for your opponent to take their turn. So you just gotta like click on the board or something, and you're just in silence or whatever.
That is where the Marvel Snap comes in, because it further evolved that by letting you put all your stuff down and then having everything process.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's something that I like. In physical, I still think it's a problem in some games. Hi, Yu-Gi-Oh! To have to wait for your opponent's turn to be over. So that is, like, if you're building a game and in playtesting you find that turns are lasting forever and the other player has nothing to do and it's really boring, maybe give an alternating action type thing a shot while you're in like pre-alpha, and see if that kind of smooths out your problem.
Or make every card a hand trap, and then that way you can do stuff.
No.
We're back to It's interesting that again, Warlord had alternating actions as a leader game from 2000. It's so wild that this game just like hits a couple of these like current trends and it got brought back, even though
Yeah,
their campaign was like what 2 years late or something, kind of silly. So I don't know how it's gonna go, but
better late than never. I'll
oh,
take it.
that's
They
true.
they delivered the product
We're not
eventually, at
pollywogging here.
least. You know, that's more than we can say for some. But one, deviation of this, kind of like the middle ground, is to bring up one game I've been playing a lot again, is Trails. So how Trails works is player A takes their main phase, player B takes their main phase, and then you go to the attack phase. And then the attack phase in Trails really is I attack, you attack, I attack, you attack, I attack, you attack. And then it really is just like the alternating
So the
action. So it's kind of
battle
got like
phase.
both. Yeah, it's
Hmm,
cool. It's
yeah.
it freaking
I
sick
still need to
ass
play
game.
Trails. Yeah, that's another game people probably, it's like World of Tanks level, what the heck is a Trails? The Trails is also like the whole thing is you get 5 booster packs and you play with that. Like it's built for sealed. Like that is like the main format I think that they try to do.
Yeah, yeah, it's like Jumpstart, but instead of 2 fat guys, it's 5 skinny guys. That's a weird analogy, I'm sorry.
Okay, dude. Whatever you say, man. I guess a downside to these back and forth actions too is that you can't combo off, and some people really like to combo off, and they like absolutely get put off by the fact that they can't just like do their thing all at once.
I've seen a lot of games where they have the back and forth that introduce a like go again mechanic,
Mm.
which comes is reference from Flesh and but they don't have alternating. But it's a lot of like I can do another thing, and then I can do another thing, and I can do another thing. And I think a lot of people use that as a way to give you more interaction or like combos during your turn. But then you're just doing a regular game now. You just are forcing the people to run the cards that say do another thing again. And it's like, okay, then what was the point of the alternating action at that point?
I know exactly what you're talking about with the go again thing. I'm just blanking on what game I played that was doing that. Dang. Okay, well, sorry, that was a pointless interlude, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I kind of disagree with you on that one a little bit, Grie. I think that can be an interesting, like, you set up your mechanics and then you have like a card effect that sort of breaks those mechanics,
Yes,
right?
yeah. My point was less like don't do that. It's more of because this is coming from like random smaller games or stuff in beta
Mm-hmm.
testing that I've played, where it's they then lean really heavily into it because they like so a lot of stuff does that repeatable thing. I'm like, okay, why? Whereas I think it's fine, like sprinkled throughout your different card effects. It's when it's like half your turn is doing your thing, and then your opponent can do something that becomes more
I
questionable.
completely agree now. You've completely won me. I agree.
I
Uh,
agree.
I agree. But like, I think that that's a good designer takeaway here, right? Like when we're talking about these trends, I always like to, if you're making your own game, here's something you can learn from this episode. You can see these trends and you can take these trends and maybe you just pick a trend because it's like, oh, this is a trend. Maybe this is good. And then if you don't understand what the strengths and weaknesses of that trend are, you can wind into it. You find yourself in a trap exactly like Grie described, where now you're subverting your own mechanics in a negative way, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that sure is how it is. I
Common
don't know. I'm
segue
sorry. I
moment.
thought I had something to add to that, and then my brain just went, "Nope, you have nothing. You have no words to say about that."
You're
Well,
done.
it's almost like my brain did. It came back. It's like the one action point thing,
Yep.
where in games where you have one action point, but then half of the game is finding out how to get more action points.
Dominion.
Flesh and blood.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's like really built into it, where that's like half of Dominion is getting more.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess. I just don't
You got to
like
go to the
Dominion.
festival, buddy. If you're not going to the festival, are you
I'm not
playing
going to the
Dominion?
festival. I'm not going to the festival. I'm not going to the King's Festival. I'm not going to the Emperor's Festival. No festivals. Hate festivals.
I'm gonna turn
I'm back.
my
I'm
Dominion
the
deck's
no
about to
fun
be a
guy
Yu-Gi-Oh
again now.
turn.
I'm taking my crown back.
All right. Well, uh, Dominion is a game about gaining victory points. And that's our next trend, is that points go up game. So this is another thing that you could probably get from Commander. You know what sucks in Commander is when you get knocked out 20 minutes into a 4-hour game of Commander and you don't get to play anymore. So a lot of the newer games want to have multiplayer, and so they just make their whole win condition get points, don't knock people out of the game until the game's over. So then we have, Riftbound, we got Shard Bugs, we got the
Lorcana.
Rush of Icor. Yeah, I don't have a Lorcana. But yeah, that one, Lorcana. It's just Oshi push. You got to get 1 million subscribers, bruh. Cookie Run is kind of a count up game. You knock stuff out to put it in the damage area, and the damage area goes up. We might as well be counting NFL 5 as a leader game if that counts. But yeah,
Technically, this is a points go up game because you get touchdowns.
Woo! There we go. Yeah,
you got it in there.
We did it. We did it. Points go up is one of those things that literally I think only matters in multiplayer. When you're in a 1v1 game, there is no real mechanical difference between points go up and points go down.
I think people have talked a little bit about if you take damage in a game, you can heal to make your point, the amount you're losing by go down. But in points go up games, you don't really usually take points away from the other person. There's like a different feel there. I've seen people say they don't like point go up games, and they feel like board games, or once you get ahead, it's hard to once you're behind, it's hard to come back. A lot of interesting opinions on how people feel about just changing number go up and number go down.
It's a very emotional response of how you interpret the results of those numbers. Because Lorcana does do some amount of points removal, and people actually don't like it because it feels to them like you're taking away my hard-earned victory. Whereas if you're starting from 20 going down, you didn't earn the 20. So you're like, oh shoot, I don't care. Give me the 1. It doesn't matter. That's the only point that matters. And so there's just a visceral reaction difference of me getting to 19 and then or my opponent gets to 19. I'm like, okay, how do I stop them? How do I get this? But then the inverse of me being at 1, there's a different kind of response to how you interact with that, even though it's mechanically the same thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. My beef with points go up, and this is primarily a Lorcana beef, is that in Lorcana, and I mean, that was the one that pretty much popularized points go up, in my opinion. And in a lot of similar points go up games, there's no real way to block your opponent, right? So in an attack game that's mostly points go down, you can throw your chumps in the way, you can block them. But in Lorcana, in a lot of points go up game, when the boy on the other side of the board is scoring, you just gotta let him do it, and there's nothing you can do to stop it from a mechanical sense.
I think Keyforge had a pretty decent sort of solve for this, where you were using amber to get your keys. Once you get enough keys, then you'd win. And it's basically points go up. Every 6 points gives you a floor. And then once you have 3 floors, you win, right? But you could steal that amber from your opponent. Now, you couldn't necessarily do the attack blocking thing, but there was ways to kind of interact with their ability to gain that amber that I think helped with that feeling of uninteractivity. But points games will be uninteractive that way. It's hard to be I'm going to tap to gain my point, and then I guess I'll block your point gainy.
Yeah. Rush of Icor kind of does what Keyforge does, where when you turn sideways to get win points, instead of you just getting the points like Lorcana, the points go on the thing that just tapped. And then if that thing dies before your next turn, then you don't get the points. So you can kind of
similar-ish to Keyforge, yeah.
Yeah.
You can stop your opponent from getting those points.
Yeah, that's a system that I really, really like, because then it adds in that interaction again, which is sorely missing in so many points go up games. And that's why, just that lack of that interaction is why I found Lorcana to be kind of boring at the end of the day, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the way you kind of mentally interact with those games, you kind of think about it, does change when the main system feels more solitaire than combat.
I agree.
Oh, snap. We agreed. Speaking of snapping, we're going back to Marvel Snap, because our next trend is location based games, lanes, locations, something where you're like fighting over something that's in the middle of the board. It's not like Magic where there's just two boards and you're like hitting each other. So then here it is again. We got Riftbound. You're fighting over locations on the board. Oshi you're fighting over the content platforms. Altered is you're fighting over like a whole lane of different cards. NFL 5 again?
You're fighting over the turf. You're fighting over
Fighting
the
over
turf
the
to go to
turf?
touchdown zones.
Shoot. And yeah, that's a recent one. MetaZoo 2 again.
Mhm.
That's you're fighting over different lanes. I think this is really on Marvel Snap. That game got really popular, and then people were immediately like, "How do we copy this exact thing or something close to it?"
Isn't
Yeah.
Hellbreak lanes as
They've actually
well?
been around for a long time. I know the original Warhammer 40K card game from like 2001, before the Necrons were even like an official faction. That game was all about fighting over locations in different lanes.
Teen Titans by Bandai, baby.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Depending on definition of lanes, the Warhammer Age of Sigmar Champions game, there was 4 lanes that you would
Yeah.
kind of go along with. Was it Soulforge Fusion was also lanes?
Yeah, Soulforge Fusion had lanes.
Oh, shoot. Star Wars Unlimited has 2 different
But
lanes.
that wasn't mentioned. I was like, he definitely mentioned Unlimited.
Star
I'm not
Wars
gonna-
Unlimited,
No, I
like,
forgot.
there's lots of deviations to this. Like, the way I see it, there's like pure location games like My Little Pony and Teen Titans and Meta 2. Then there's lane games like Star Wars and Soulforge Fusion. And then there's like the tactical positioning games like Genesis Battle of Champions, Echoes of Astra, kind of,
Yeah, I was
Sorcery.
counting that. That would go in the second category.
That,
which
yeah,
was,
Echoes of Astra's
or
more.
no, the first one, because you are fighting over.
Yeah,
specific
you've got like the
locations.
actual locations there.
Yeah.
But like there's a lot of permutations to this. And I think this is my least favorite of the trends, to be honest. Especially when it comes to the tactical card games. And it's not because there's anything necessarily wrong with the I'm going to slide my trading cards across the board thing. It's literally just a pet peeve of mine that I see at least one new indie game pop up every year that's like, I know what I'm gonna do to revolutionize trading card games. I'm gonna make you slide them across the game board. And every single one of these people think they're the first one to come up with it. And it's like, no, you're not.
Guardians did this back then. You're not new.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that's my entire beef. Everybody thinks that they are new and fresh when they do this, and you're not.
Yeah, dude, Guardians, that's a crazy game. Yeah, I think we could kind of split this into 2 where like yeah, the grid tactical games are like one section and then the like fighting over like I guess the whole thing is positional elements. Like their positional matters games are just hot right now.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
it gives you more decisions on where to do and put things compared to just play bungus turn sideways hit you.
And I think with me and like
Yu-Gi-Oh is a lanes game.
Yeah.
positions matter, link monsters, pendulums.
Barely. Sorta.
Yeah, barely.
Yeah.
Well, although there's a new chess archetype coming out, apparently it's gonna be a lot
Whatever,
of
just don't play
positional
into
stuff.
Imperm or Mech Knights or whatever.
Something that I think Star Wars Unlimited kind of reflected with me in these types of games, where that game, the 2 zones are basically just flying keyword, no flying keyword. And then what you can play into there is which zones you can interact with. And I think less games are doing that specifically, but I think with Unlimited, I don't really like it as much because it feels very like arbitrary. Like why, like I get one space, one's ground, but it doesn't feel like there's enough.
Star Wars is about ground and space fights.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
it.
Why though? Why couldn't we just have the flying keyword? Why have to have all the stuff on the board moved around differently? And but other games will focus a little more. It's a little more important to them of like you grid positional and you go here, go there. Like there was one with like with grid games in specific, that's like a bigger abstract problem I have with it, where a lot of it, the grid is representational of combat keywords as opposed to like tactical depth or complexity. It's more like I'm over here, which means I'm basically unblockable, or I have hexproof because I'm on the other corner of the board, or like it's all ways to kind of abstract the normal combat you expect from a card game as opposed to creating like, I don't know, real depth of some kind.
I agree.
I'm not sure.
Listen, I'm a certified grid hater, so I get it.
Yeah.
I do, dude, Grie, you, me, we can be certified grid haters together. Let's go. Heck yeah.
I do feel like when I'm playing a lot of the like indie games and yeah, the grid just ends up being a little bit of an eye roll
Hmm.
as opposed to something that like really adds something
Hmm.
that I'm enjoying to the game. Like, oh, I got to spend 3 turns walking over to you, or like, oh, you just killed me when I can't hit you back, or yeah.
You
I
get to
mean, there's
fly
some
away
people are
and.
really into that though. So,
Hmm.
some people allegedly are into sorcery
Some
at the game.
people really like it. It appeals to a certain category. I get it. That's why I described my hatred for this one as a pet peeve more than an
Hmm.
objective complaint. Because some people love the whole, I know what's fun for me, spending 5 turns sliding my tank to the other side in Wartide for it to get instant speed sent into the fucking no-no
Oh,
zone.
I guess
God damn.
World of Tanks also has like a positional element, but it's mostly just like it's almost like Yu-Gi-Oh, where there's like I think there's 5 or maybe there's 6 zones where you put tanks, and then like certain types of tanks like they can attack like diagonal, or they can only attack right in front of them, or like it's artillery and you can attack over the map. And I think that's like the grid without needing the grid. It gives you that like, ooh, I could play this here, but like, if my opponent doesn't blah blah blah, then like I won't be able to do anything because there's nothing over here. And you get that same thing without the whole grid, which I do like the middle level kind of thing,
Yeah.
like the meta twos and
Hmm.
uh that kind of thing.
No, that actually sounds great, and now I'm genuinely interested in playing World of Tanks.
You
So,
should.
I've heard it's
Did
good.
I mention altered in this one? Because this is an altered one too. Because
yeah,
you,
the
oh yeah, I
Altered
did.
Yeah.
does
I think I
this
I
did.
think
too with
Altered
the
is a more interesting pivot on it because they
Mhm.
don't like the what you play on is slightly randomized. So like you do those compare like Altered you like compare numbers in different spots. You have better number, you're a better person. So like but the where and when you compare change. So there's a little bit of a nuance of how you choose to interact and where you fight, but your units don't technically move anywhere. You don't put them anywhere differently on the board. You have little trackers for the actual places on the map you're at.
You still got
Um,
2 lanes.
2 lanes.
yeah. Do you have 2 lanes? Well, there's one for.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
got
yeah,
the you
yeah.
got the you got the person and the
That's
dog,
right.
and
The person
you
dog
gotta pet
lane.
the
Yeah,
dog.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have
And
two
so there's
lanes.
so it's an interesting pivot, and I think
Wait,
it
say
has
that
more
again.
value because there's more stuff shuffled up, and like it's more randomized in how you get to choose to interact with something like, um, it's like an abstract of like the Bleach CCG where you like
Mm,
picked the number or you like picked the color and you fought with those
Yeah.
things. Similar kind of deal, but it's chosen for you on the card itself.
God, I love Bleach. God, that game's good.
I need to play more of it. I played starter decks, which is like the same deck, but you got a different leader, I think. And
Yeah, the starter.
one of
Yeah,
the
starter
leaders was
deck's
just
good better.
way better than the other
Yeah,
ones.
Common
yeah,
starter deck L.
Yeah, it was like
yeah,
it gave all hollows like extra number. So like
yeah, dude. The Grand Fisher like leader card was cracked when that game came out. Like that leader card was absolutely insane. It was just like how most of the grunts in this game are hollows because we're at like the start of it, and so you have like one Soul Reaper and it's Ichigo, and then everybody else is a hollow. What if we buffed those hollows to infinity? That'll make for good gameplay. It did not. Everybody just played Grand Fisher. Good times.
see. So yeah, locational battle element thingy bobs that very common. I only have one left on our list, and oh no, I guess there's one left that I put examples on. Enters tapped. So
Mm.
these are creature battlers where the creatures enter tapped. A good way to not have summoning sickness or not need to explain it is just to have things enter tapped so they can't do anything, which we have Star Wars Unlimited and Riftbound. I'm getting tired of pulling these same games up again. What else did this?
It's almost like these are trends that
Yeah.
all new games are
Wow,
coming out,
yeah,
so we
it's
have to show
crazy.
new
Oh,
And
games for them or
Hellbreak.
something.
Hellbreak. I forgot to mention there's a horror game coming out from Spin Master and somebody else, and it falls into like half of these.
hmm
I think it's a leader game. It's got any card as resource.
it's the exact
I
system for Star Wars Unlimited for the 2 lanes.
Yeah, I think it's got back and forth actions as well. So it's just like almost all of
Yeah,
these that
it's
we've
the
been
Yeah,
trend
covering so
game.
far.
it's
Yeah.
the trend game, but I mean, listen, I know Spin Masters had its hits and misses and misses and misses and misses
It's had
and
hits.
misses. One like you give it hit one and then like 5 misses, but I kind of like Spin Masters output. I'm gonna be honest. Hey, listen, you sell me a Spin Masters on this thing, I'm gonna be at least a little interested.
I think they're like tweaking. They have all these trends, but they're like tweaking some bits.
Hmm.
Like I think the way they were doing their resources was a little bit different.
Yeah, you like
Like you
gamble
like
almost.
bet over who gets the initiative for the round, by like some number that's on the resources. And I think the resources also have like secondary effects when they're resources. So
Hmm.
like multiple use cards, like that
And
could
they
be
kind of
neat.
stack under your leader card too, so they like show you like a resource
Yeah, something
incremental
like
value.
that. So I'm interested when that
Yeah.
game is like playable.
It has a
To
lot
give
of
it
these like
a
surface
try.
level features and then lots of little tiny
It's
tweaky
also a
things to
Shield
it.
game. Shield game probably
Yep.
could have been one of these. I didn't put it on here, but
Shield
Yeah.
games have been I wouldn't say
it's
Shield
basically
game's
just
a
Bandai,
recent trend.
Yeah.
Like, and
right?
it's just, like it's just been
Well, shield games have been around for a long time. It's just people usually didn't um like recognize or think about them that
Mhm.
way. Like a lot of games have used cards as tracking some kind of damage or win condition. But I think there's enough abstract ways to do it that people pick up less on it as being specifically a shield or a prize or some kind of
Yeah,
life
Right.
yeah.
Like
point.
Cookie Run basically is shields. You like take cards and they become cookie hit points. I'm like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
like, even though they're essentially the exact same thing as shields, like it's really cool. And this is also the same exact thing that the original One Piece card game did. Oh, what a game that was.
Dude, that was a wacky game. I think Cookie Run's got some cool ideas. It's a game I want to
Cookie
mess
Run's
with
cool.
more. It looks really, really
I
cool.
Cookie Run is really cool. I only played it like starter decks and like opening one box a person and playing it. So like I just like feel like you get to like the top level and there's some like
Hmm.
absolutely degenerate thing that's like, oh man, this doesn't play anything like
Good luck getting
jank.
the cards for that though.
Yeah,
And and the reason why I think we've gotten distracted from the actual topic of cards coming in as rested is it is the least interesting trend on this list because
yeah,
it's
it's
literally just summoning sickness with an
five
A
extra
visual
step.
turn.
bug.
Yeah,
And it's the
Yeah.
most newest one too. Like I think this is a really, really new system that a lot of people are starting to pick up on.
Didn't no, Keyforge didn't do this.
No, I think they
yeah.
did. I think they
I don't
did.
know.
I
I
don't
think they
remember.
did.
I'm blanking on that specific rule, but like it's just and the reason why I blank on what does and doesn't do this is because
It's
who
not really important.
cares?
I just wrote,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the rest of this list is kind of we've gone over the big ones, and then the rest are just things I have noticed that happen in games, whether there be
Hmm.
anything to actually talk about or not.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I think the rested cards come and play rested is a genuine recent trend. It's just I don't know,
what
guys.
do you say about it?
You
Doesn't
could
really change
just
anything.
have summoning sickness. Like
If you find a way to untap it, you can use it on the same turn. That's what that gets you.
something. That's something, I
Or
guess.
this just enters ready.
Yes.
Call haste.
Oh, is it? Did I do Star Wars again? Because this is yeah,
Yeah,
this is,
Yeah.
oh,
and
it's
then,
That one's interesting because it's not just creatures. Everything enters
Mhm.
tapped.
because you technically play your resource at the end of a round.
Because
Yeah.
they
It
come in
comes
tapped, and then you
then
ready them.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's a
Mhm.
weird backwards
They also have a keyword that's like when you play this, ready it and then attack with it.
Mhm. Yep.
ambush, I think.
I think so. That sounds
Yeah.
right. I think Gree's right.
I've done a
That
Star
sounds
Wars.
that sounds right.
Um,
I Star Wars once.
you want to just kind of like rapid fire off the last three? Like,
Yep. I have serialized cards. That's yeah, that is what it is. We're in like kind of card stonk land. MetaZoo kind of started a whole thing. I guess COVID started a thing, and then
yeah.
it floated to MetaZoo, and then it floated to everything else. Whether there's collector investor people that want their super duper crazy rare cards that they can buy for a gazillion dollars that they hope will appreciate over the years. Sometimes they're not even technically serialized, like your flesh and blood fabled rare that are one in a cajillion boxes.
Yeah.
And
I was
Mhm.
gonna say, I think this one's really popular with older games as like a new thing to do to an older game. So like Magic has this going for a while. Pokemon hasn't done it yet. Yu-Gi-Oh is about to do it or has already done it with the Japanese product. And we'll probably get it in English. But you usually see this in a lot of games that like have some kind of hook for like a Kickstarter or product sales are dipping. We need something to kind of juice up the collector investor bro type deal.
shoot, I forgot to include the Cyberpunk game in all
Yeah.
of these.
But
Like
yeah.
I mean,
Cyberpunk
Cyberpunk
serialized
does.
cards,
I mean,
any card is resource.
the last thing I put on there kind of is a big Cyberpunk call out, but
well, And the thing I want to say on serialized cards is that it's not a surprising trend to see even older games do it, because it's the natural endpoint of the NFTization of the TCG space, because NFTs are uniquely one of one collectibles. Even if you have two of the same sheep man or
My
whatever, each
receipt
one has
is unique.
the receipt is unique. And what is that if not the serialization stamp on a trading card? It's just the natural endpoint of the paper NFT culture we find ourselves in with TCGs. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is kind of a, of course, no brainer.
And it's very funny. Pokemon has not leaned into this too. It's like
Yeah, I mean,
perfect
shockingly,
opportunity for
dude,
them, but they're just like,
The second Pokemon start seeing that hype do just this a little bit, just a little
mm-hmm,
bit, they're
They
gonna be
hit the
like
serialized
serialized
button.
cards, and now it's vertical
mm-hmm,
again. It's I can't wait. That's
mm-hmm.
sarcasm.
For the next one, we have randomized starters. Question mark? I did not put this one on here. I'm not even sure what game is doing randomized
I guess
starters
the
right now.
Jumpstart model.
So I've seen randomized
So
starters pop
Jacob
up.
threw this on here and then
I
just isn't on the
Jacob threw
episode.
this on here just to screw with us. So
Is the curveball.
I can talk a little bit on this. I've seen more randomized starters pop up, and this is something where it also kind of falls under the unique deck game business model, you
Mm,
know? Um a- and like Fire Force Trails, Keyforge,
Alter
all of
does
these.
this technically. Then
Alter does this to an extent with the unique cards. It's something we're seeing a little bit more of. I wouldn't necessarily call it a trend yet, but I think it's something that could become one in the
we're
future.
starting the pattern. This is the
Yeah,
pattern recognition that turns into the trend.
exactly. I'm starting to see it. So,
This probably makes more sense as people do more stuff like the Jumpstart as like a starter product, or if anyone's crazy enough to do Keyforge. Soulforge Fusion had randomized starters to
yeah,
an extent.
Soulforge Fusion was the same.
And then I'm trying to remember if there's
This
anyone else.
Sandland, wasn't that just starter decks, but they were like, yeah,
Yeah,
random
but
one.
you like blind grabbed one. I don't know if the contents were randomized so much as which one you were getting was randomized.
This doesn't seem like a trend. Fake news. Who put this on here? Get it off.
I blame you, Jacob. And then Bandai.
The
Yeah, this one I put on
Bandaiization
there.
of card games. This is Grie's
Yeah.
his white whale
All
of
right, Grie, you got the floor.
So I think this is an interesting. It's clearly a trend. Like everything we've talked about basically comes from Bandai games at this point, and I think this is a lot of starting with Duel Masters and then eventually the Bandai stuff picked this up. They really branched out and tried different things to be early on, but in the past like maybe 10 years or
you
so,
can say that.
they've really tried to perfect a formula of you have some kind of shield, you have a leader card, you got your any cards as resource, you're going to fight, you'll use the same similar combat system. And every game they've released since then, minus like a Godzilla here and there, really just.
That's Bushi Road.
Oh, yeah, it is Bushiroad. Wait,
I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
I know, right?
Bandai would
Yeah.
not be making if they would somehow be like a creature battler. Bandai did.
Didn't they do?
Oh,
Battle Saga is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like they just have these random games that pop up every now and again, even though that Battle Saga is technically whatever. And every game feels like the V.X of the previous game. And I think as time has gone on and less people have come from like a Magic oriented design space and more of a Bandai design space, we're seeing these trends come up because that's what they grew up on. That's maybe the design stuff they've studied or looked at, or and my bigger thought process of this is like there's less people feeding into and out of like Magic design like processes of getting into designing for WotC, coming out of that, making their own game. And it's more from the Bandai side now, where a lot more people are going into doing Bandai stuff, be it design, play testing, coming out of it and going, I could do my own thing. I know how Bandai work.
The aesthetics as well. I mean, because we actually already brought this up with Riftbound, but like
the original game looked like One Piece, like straight up. Like the demo cards are One Piece cards. And so as people
Milo Pony?
Yep.
What?
The new Milo Pony is very Bandai coded.
Neopets.
Jacob, you're not on the episode. Stay away.
There's a ghost or something haunting us.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
some
know.
weird.
And so as people
Go
have
on.
come to and from the Bandai space, it's now permeating more of these concepts and ideas because that's now what they grew up on. They're not used to the 5-mana color pie, tap resource land, creature on creature combat stuff. It is the all cards as resource, blocker keyword, thousands numbers attack stuff. And we can see this culmination in Cyberpunk, Like this new Cyberpunk game is like the culmination of all of these trends in a distilled game. Neuroscape the same way. Basically any
No,
Neuroscape's
Neuroscape's magic, I think.
I think
That
Neuroscape is basically Force of Will. Um And so, but it has some of those tendencies. It's got the Dawn system. It's got the throw tap creatures combined main phase type deal. I think we're just going to see more and more of these as people are going in and out of the Bandai stuff more than they are coming out of the Magic stuff. Even though Magic's still technically the popular game, more
I was
popular
about to
game
say
out of all of
Neuroscape would
this.
be my one example of still using more like magic stuff.
Yeah, but it's got
But
the DNA in there. It's got the
yeah,
Bandai
it does
coded
have.
stuff in there.
I feel like for any big IP we're gonna see in the near future, like Cyberpunk, is just gonna be this. Like we figured
Mm-hmm.
out how
Hellbreak.
TCG game is, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just gonna be like the safest thing. Where like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, in the 2000s there was a lot of maybe not great games. I was just gonna say garbage, but maybe a little more charitable. Some of them were actually really cool, but they tried to do different things. Zatch Bell was not Creature Battler game.
Mm-hmm.
It was really thematic towards the game, and I'm looking at across the wall. There's Shaolin Showdown got one, and
Yep.
it was really thematic towards the game, and it was like kind of maybe not amazing. Actually, I had fun playing that one, but then shut up, Jacob. Yeah, yeah. Actually, no, unshut up, Jacob. We should cover the other decades design trends, maybe. I don't
Oh
know.
Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be
other
fun.
decades design trends I think is a cool idea. I'm gonna give a shout out to my favorite, second favorite. Zatch Bell's my favorite. Wacky 2000s game that tried new shit. And that's codename Kids Next Door.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
It made the put the stickers on your cards shit work. Like it felt good, shockingly enough, to do that.
I'll have to play that one. Is that the one? It's like rock paper scissors or
It's like a
war or
war.
something.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
war
it's like
RPS
There's
a
like
type
a
deal.
button in the middle where you can slap it.
yes. It's got the slappy button. Like if we're talking just doing wacky shit, Kids Next Door.
Made by WotC, I think.
It was made by WotC, yeah. And so I think your overall point, both of you, is absolutely on the money of we're seeing a homogenization because Bandai is pushing homogenization in their own games, which is inspiring other designers and other creators to push that same homogenization. And these are good things. I think Bandai games overall are good. It's hard for me to play a Bandai game and say, "Oh, I absolutely hate it. It's garbage."
Right. It's
It's
functional.
like
It works.
it's McDonald's.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I know some people have talked about, what about the One Piece card game is One Piece? Like what are there any mechanics that are really like, damn, this is really about uh, you know, pirate gangs, even though I'm not even sure One Piece is really about pirates, but you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
but
It's
it's
about the
not
One Piece.
like as somebody who read all the comics, the One Piece card game doesn't feel like One Piece. It feels like Bandai slop. Dragon Ball Super doesn't feel like a Dragon Ball fight to me. It feels like Bandai slop. The closest one that gets kind of a little close to the source material is Digimon, just because it has
Mm-hmm.
Digivolve.
the evolution system. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw out a nuclear take. That feels more like Pokemon evolutions to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, I don't agree with that at all. That's dumb takes. How is it like Pokemon evolution? You can turn anything into anything.
I guess you can turn it. Okay, fine,
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
you add the tweak to it, saying like you add the name of whatever, and then it becomes
But even
Pokemon.
in like Digimon, you can't just turn anything into anything. There's actual evolution trees. So it's not
Ooh.
like Digimon either.
Have you
Sure,
seen Digimon recently? I
Yeah, there's
haven't
a
seen
lot of
the
anything.
multicolor
evolution
stuff.
trees are wackier in
Yeah.
Digimon. I'll give you that, but there are evolution trees. You can't turn your Koromon into Lady Devamon. That's not a thing
Not with
in
Yeah,
that
you're skipping
Digimon.
attitude.
levels. You can only skip levels sometimes.
No, I'm not talking about skipping levels. I'm talking like there isn't. Okay, maybe you could like Black Agumon. Okay, maybe you can Koromon. Maybe you can Koromon into it, but it's like
Digimon definitely has some branching ability with like dual
But
color cards.
it,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
but I think
totally off.
for Bandai games, I think Gundam's not too far from feeling like a Gundam game because you
Yeah,
got your
you got
pilots, you got
pilots
your
and stuff.
dudes, yeah, like, and then you
I
have
don't
a
know what
base
else
you're
you do.
defending. Yeah, like
You got to make it like the original Gundam card game where you have ground and space. Star Wars Unlimited rip off original Gundam game?
Secret Lair, Star Wars Unlimited Gundam.
Whoa. Uh, uh, oh, I have one more hidden last one that I didn't write down, but this just reminded me. people that like indie games or like new games that come out the gate with collector packs that look almost exactly like Magic collector packs. I wish I had it in the room with me,
Oh,
but like the final set that Altered got delivered before they freaking died, they did collector packs and it looks almost exactly like a Magic collector pack. It's got the strip down the side and it just looks like that. Primal had the collector packs at one point and they basically look like Magic collector packs.
oh my God! I
Unlimited does
totally forgot
collector
about
packs.
Primal's stupid collector packs. Man, I like Primal. I like the guy that makes it, but man, those collector packs sucked. I don't like collector packs.
Well,
It's
they're
silly.
not playable anymore
Yeah.
anyway. They
That
like
could probably hook
reset the
back
whole
off
game
on the
after that.
serialized one, realistically. Of
Yeah,
just a
collector
way to
packs
like
serialized.
monetize the
Oh,
collectible
yeah.
aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
That's true,
Just
yeah.
juicing the collectible shit, which
What
like
that what is it? The big booba behind me, this what is this? Otherverse? This is the
Otherverse.
collector box. The collector box for Otherverse, baby. I don't even did anybody heard of this game? What's it got in there? It's got 2 god packs, 6 regular packs, and a promo. Whoa.
I it's
It
got
doesn't say what that means.
it's
So I
got
hope you know what a god pack
cartoon
is.
boobles on it. That's what I
Yeah, those
paid
are the god
attention
packs.
to.
Two of them
Yeah,
right there.
woo! God Pack 1 and God Pack 2. Let's go.
That game's like super dead.
Yeah.
Just coming out the gate with collector packs because it's gonna be collectible.
Did, yeah. And what was it recently? There was that MetaZoo Kickstarter recap video that blew up recently, and the takeaway that guy had, which I think is correct, is if you bring your TCG game out of the gate, and the number one thing you focus on is just money, 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 collector, money, shiny cardboard money, you're gonna lose. You're gonna fail. It's never gonna work out. And I think that's correct. Not really the takeaway from this video, but uh,
That's why you just copy a Bandai game and then do that.
j-
There you go.
don't do that.
That's how you
Don't
do. We
don't
need
do that.
shields. We need leader cards. We need any card as resources, something like that.
Sorry,
That's it.
one sec.
I'm
Cyberpunk
putting.
dropped a new tier for serialized dog from Cyberpunk. So let me go sign up to that real quick.
There you go.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Let me drop 8K on that one serialized card you get at the top of Cyberpunk, but then they've made like 5 or 6 or more, I
Yeah.
don't know at this
Isn't it
point
like
of those tiers.
I think like almost 20 to 25% of the money for that campaign is coming from those tiers alone.
Mm-hmm. Not
Yeah.
necessarily a great sign, but we'll see.
That could be like a whole other video on like Grease had this hypothesis that like after a certain point, Kickstarter TCGs make too much money and like they'll crash when they come out.
I 100% agree. I agree with Grie. Like that's a correct assessment, because like I've been looking at things, and as somebody who runs a lot of Kickstarters and consults on a lot of Kickstarters, the curse of success is a real thing, because you hit a point and a scale where the expectations are higher than what you can realistically deliver. And it genuinely becomes a problem. But that is definitely an episode for another day.
That's our TCG trends for the 2020s so far. We're over halfway. We're in the second half of the decade. Wonder if we'll get any new ones by the time we're done.
And let us know in the comments below if you've noticed any other trends or have done some pattern recognition. Like, what are the trends you've been seeing? What do you think the next trends are going to be? Because I think
Whoa.
to an extent, people are getting tired of the Bandai slop. And I think we're going to, at the later half, the end of this decade, into the 2030s, I think we're going to get a new collection of trend slop to enjoy. So let us know.
My guess is digital cards with little chips inside that you could play on a magical board that does everything for you.
The PlayStation 3 Eye of Judgment.
No, that new one.
The
That's,
new one.
Getting
That's
advertised around.
Oh,
They
yeah.
spent all the money on the tech for the board, so all the art's just AI. Which is like, that's the dumbest thing ever. Cause
I guess
like,
that's probably going to be the trend, right? AI. There you go.
Oh, God.
no,
Please
well, we're
no.
trying
Please
not
no.
to do that.
Please no.
Wonders
Please
of the
no.
worst. First,
Wonders of the
bad.
fart. Got him.
Wow.
Blunders of the blurst.
There you go.
Frick.
Sunders of the
Surst.
All right, see you
Yeah.
next time, everybody.